I am so excited to have with us here again today one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. You all are in for a real treat. My friend, international fundraising consultant, trend spotter, speaker trainer, and thought leader, Gail Perry. Gail has worked with literally thousands of board members, nonprofit leaders, and fundraising staff to boost them with the fundraising skills and inspiration they need to change the world. Gail's Fired Up Fundraising Board workshops help turn board members into happy ambassadors, actively helping in fundraising. And her book, Fired Up Fundraising Turn Board Passion into Action, has been called the gold standard guide to building successful fundraising boards. Today, Gail is going to be how guiding you through making a successful call on a major gift prospect. And welcome, Gail. We are so honored and tickled that you're joining us here today.
Thanks so much, Pam. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks.
I am going to go ahead and make you the presenter in 1 second. Let me find you. There you are.
Okay, and I'm going to click Show My Screen. Okay.
I'm not seeing it yet.
It's popped up on mine. I'm going to go ahead and click Show My Screen.
There we go.
Here we go. Yeah. Whoops. I'm using two. Let me put you in slideshow. Okay. Do you see my screen?
I do. Looks great.
All right. Good. 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 Well, shall I take it from here, Pam?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm going to actually mute myself.
Oh, well, great. Oh, great. Okay, everybody. Well, I'm tickled to be with y'all today. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a bit ways away from people, and so sometimes I do have my y'alls. They creep in, and I would love to know where where you are in the world and your organization. Would you please go up to not the chat box that we were talking about before, but the question box that's a little bit higher up on your control panel? Just type in a hello and where you are and what is, because it's always fun to see who's on the call with me today. And
Oh, it
I have a
is.
big agenda that I'm going to cover with y'all. Let's see if I can.
Let's see.
Hmm.
Cindy is calling in from Dallas.
Great.
Savannah is from Boston.
Great.
Pam's.
Okay. Well, we'll look at those in just a sec, and I'll
Okay.
go on. It's not Pam. The questions are not showing up on my control panel. So if you would please make me maybe an organizer, then I can see them. Okay?
Let me see if I can do that
Yeah.
at this
Okay.
point.
And this is just me, a little schlock about me. I am very proud of my book. I will never probably write another one because it took so much out of me. Lots of fun. I do a lot of work with boards. I love major gifts. I got my start in Duke University in North Carolina in fundraising a long time ago as a major gift officer, and then I went to UNC Chapel Hill. And I've been a consultant for a long, long time, worked with lots of small organizations, trying to help them deal with the unique challenges that small organizations have when it comes to understanding major gifts and getting into major gifts. And I just want to tell you just a little bit about what I do. I do a lot of online training like Pam does, and I've got a couple of really exciting workshops coming up. Every summer I do a very special workshop helping organizations create their strategic fundraising plan, and you can learn more about that on my website. And also, I also do the first week of September, I do a special telesummit to help you get ready for your year-end fundraising campaign, and I bring in all the gurus to help you there. So that's lots of fun, and you can, if you need that kind of help, please join me. And, our agenda today is going to be really interesting. Whoops, let's see. It's not showing up. Can you see anything on that? Let's see. There we go. There we go. I have something very special for you on my website. I'm giving you away a workbook called Skyrocket Your Fundraising with a Systematic Major Gifts Program, and it's a 61-page workbook, and you can get it on my site at this address, gailperry.com/resources-Pamela Grow. I usually sell the workbook for $99, but today I'm giving it to you for free, and I hope it'll help you. I hope it'll help you a lot. And backing up just a little, I skipped. Somehow my agenda is not showing up on the screen for you. Do you see anything on my agenda? I guess not. But today we're going to talk about what the differences are in major gifts between major gifts and other kinds of gifts. We're going to talk about different kinds of major donor visits. We're going to talk about how you prepare. And I'm going to give you 10 essential tips for handling the visit. There we go. Oh, I've got these trick things going on my web page. 10 essential tips for handling the visit itself. We're going to talk a little bit about etiquette when it comes to visiting major donor prospects and how to follow up. So we should have a lot of fun. So let's start with 5 major gifts fundamentals. And, if you're a small organization, you may be stuck in event fundraising mode. And you may do a mailing campaign, and major gifts may seem far, far away. And lots of times smaller organizations have a hard time getting their head around what this is all about. And so it really is a very specific strategy with major gifts. One thing is that it focuses on the long run. You are not going in to try to raise money quickly. You are developing a long-term relationship with your donor. And also, it's not about selling. I think a lot of board members of smaller organizations think that we're going to go in for the kill or make a big hit, all those words they use. But it's not about selling at all, because it's about the relationship. In major gifts, the long-term relationship is more important than the ask. So you are very careful not to ask too soon or too quickly. You won't, because if you do ask too soon, it may backfire. And you are nurturing. This is White Gloves and Pearls. I am from the South. We're going to talk about good manners when it comes to dealing with prospects. It's just like if you are single and you want to flirt with somebody, you don't ask them to marry you right off the bat, right? You develop a relationship. And sometimes if you explain that to people who don't understand major gifts, they can get it a lot better. And also, here's a challenge, my friends, is that major gifts takes lots and lots and lots of time. You cannot do major gifts without getting out of the office and going to see people. And I think that's a terrible challenge, especially in small shops. And I want to give you a couple of tips for getting out the door if you're in a small shop. One is draw a line in the sand that you are going to make 5 visits every month out of the office on major donors, former major donors, potential major donors, 5 of them. And then, drawing a line in the sand is very powerful because you make a commitment to yourself and you say it out loud. Like right now, I have a newsletter that goes out to my community. I've got 18,000 subscribers around the world, and my newsletter goes out every Friday. And I drew a line in the sand in '09, and now my site has amazing SEO because I post on it once a week all these years. And I have to say that it has made an enormous amount of difference in my international visibility. So if you draw a line in the sand and make a commitment, and I'd like for you to think to yourself, have you ever had an internal conversation with yourself and made a commitment to do something, like a big commitment, and everybody probably has. So go deep inside yourself and see if you want to tackle this and make a promise. And my second tip to you is enlist everybody in your office to support you to get out of the office. Because sometimes smaller shops, the staff doesn't understand that people get to go out for lunch, and it's important and it's part of their work. And I have seen staff members grumble and make snide comments when the fundraising person goes out. And I can tell you right now that is so demoralizing, and you might as well be shooting your major gift efforts in the foot if everybody internally does not support it. So you need to enlist everybody in helping you get out of the office. And don't let these long-term staffers who don't understand it get away with sabotage, because it's more important than their ego, if I could be so bold as to say. And also get your board members to help you too, to get their support in making these calls. Now, also, my last major gift fundamental, and this is very, very essential, especially if you're in a small shop. This is a campaign period. This is a donor period, right? A donor period means that there are larger donors at the top of the pyramid and the smaller donors at the bottom. And there's a little bit of buzz going on in the fundraising world right now about whether the donor pyramid is dead. And I would say as a planning tool, it is very much alive. As a planning tool, your donor pyramid helps you identify who's big and who's small, and you're going to go after the people who are big, right? And I have to also say that major gifts are not democratic. You are not going to love everybody equally, and that is just the way it goes. And so you have to be okay with that. You are paying attention to people because they have deep pockets, and that is how you raise the big money. So my friends, small shop friends who are listening today, if you get only one thing out of this presentation, get this, please. You cannot chase everybody. And if you are going to be successful, since you have a lot of pulls on your time, you have to narrow down your focus to a very few wonderful people who are interested in you and who are accessible and probably have invested before, and you nurture them. And, you know, when you think about it in terms of nurturing a relationship, it's really fun. I love doing this stuff, but I'm warped. And so I hope that I'm inspiring you perhaps to be fun, to have some fun. So now let's talk about some types of major donor visits. Oh, gosh, I just opened my question box and I see all these people, Milwaukee and Washington, D.C., fun, Santa Barbara, oh, my gosh, Boston. I used to live in Boston. I really appreciate that. And Sharon has just asked me to please repeat the link to Gail's gift. Sharon, it is gailperry.com/resources-Pamela Grow. And I have got this link embedded in a few of the slides so you won't miss it. And I really do want you to pull down that workbook. I used that exact workbook in a big training up in Chicago area last week. We had 80, 90, 100 board members and organizations in a room together, and they were all over it. They were taking notes, writing in the margins, so it really, really is good stuff that will help you. Let's talk about types of major donor visits. Want to do that? And this is how you get in the door, my friend. And Jerry Pana said that the biggest challenge in asking for a gift is getting the appointment. And I do think that getting the appointment is a huge bugaboo for lots of people. So these are Gail's ruthlessly practical tips on how to get the appointment. Now, here's one theme. One of the ways you get the appointment is that you want to get to know him as a donor. And these ideas are from my friend Ellie Jordfall, who raises money at UNC Chapel Hill for the Lineberger Cancer Center. And she gets on the phone, and when somebody has made a gift, a surprising gift, she'll get on the phone and she'll say, "I'd love to hear why you chose to give." And then she says, "Would you be willing to have coffee with me? I'd love to understand your story." And then my favorite line that she uses, she says, "Mr. Jones, you've been a donor all these years. My job is to know our patrons, and I would love to visit you and hear your story." And so she's so elegant and so polite. Now, who would say no to this? This is exquisite social skills, exquisite manners, and it's gentle. It's not pushy, and I can't think of a stronger tool to use to get in the door. And so here's some other ideas. You know, I used to say when I was a staff fundraiser, we have something we want to ask you about. Or can we have 30 minutes for a quick visit? You know, or so-and-so said you might be interested. That's the hardest one. Somebody said you might be interested. It has to be a really big fish if you're going to drop that name. So these are a little bit more difficult ways to get in the door. Here are some of my other favorite ones. A thank you visit. I want to thank you for your gift and update you on what's happened. People are willing to accept thank you visits lots of time. And also introduce you visits. I want you to meet Mr. X. We have a new executive director. I want to bring him to meet you. So introduce you visits. If you have somebody new on your staff and you have a donor who's been involved over time for your organization, very easy way to get in the door. They're going to want to know this person and understand their point of view. And also, thank you for your gift. Most donors are willing to receive a thank you visit. Now, this assumes that people have already established some sort of relationship with you by giving. And I would say to you, this is important, and you might want to write this down. I'm going to quote the great Penelope Burke. And I follow every time she breathes. I follow what she says because she has research data to back her up. She said that every organization has all the major gift prospects it needs. Listen to that. I'll repeat this. Every organization already has all the major gift prospects it needs. But she says it's such a shame. All the major gifts prospects are languishing in the smaller donor files, and you don't know who they are. So your smaller donors are completely full of major gift prospects, which is why you've got to do a killer job of thanking even your smaller donors as personally as you can, so that they might self-identify as being more interested. Now let me give you some other ones. This is, again, one of my somewhat famous and very, very, very powerful tools. I personally can get in any door in town by using an advice visit, and I've got 4 blog articles. By the way, my blog, GailPerry.com, it's also FiredUpFundraising.com. They go to the same place. Has lots of great, short, snappy, energetic articles. And you can go to the search bar on my site and look up any article, and you do not have to sign up for my list in order to pull down any of these resource articles. So I would really challenge you and invite you to look up my advice visit articles, because the whole thinking is, of course, is that if you want money, ask for advice, and if you want advice, ask for money. And so I'll call up Mr. or Ms. Big Philanthropist in Raleigh or anywhere if I know them, and I'll say, can I come pick your brain? We are up to something important, and I really would love to have your input. Now, if I called you and I said, could I come pick your brain? We're up to something really big, and I'd love to have your input. Would that pique your curiosity? Would you want to see me? I think you probably would. You know, and you also have to remember that if you are up to something really big, then if you are up to something really big, your philanthropist is going to want to know what it is. The philanthropists all talk to each other, and they love to be in the know. So just imagine that you've got to be imagining that your prospect or your philanthropist does want to see you and find out what's going on. So that's all I'm going to talk about advice visits today, but just say I have raised a lot of money. I have raised millions of dollars using the advice visit formula at every stage of the donor relationship, from getting in the door and cultivating also to warming up somebody for a gift. Woohoo! You can tell I'm warped. I love this stuff. Now, here are some other types of visits. If you are wanting to seek funding from a foundation or a corporation, well, not a corporation, but a foundation, you would call them and say, can we please have a visit? We want to see if we are a fit for your interests. Based on your website, it looks like we are a fit, but we'd like to run it by you before we create a proposal. Usually foundations will see you. You know, and also, I'll be in your area. Can I drop by? I want to touch base about our project. Lots of times if a foundation has already funded you, you're afraid to send them a status report. Be not afraid, my friend. Go in and share during the funding cycle your challenges and your learnings as a result of this grant, and I will tell you, it's going to be easy to get a second round of funding. So lots of ways to get in the door, and this is what you never want to say. Never want to say, I want to update you on what we are up to. Now look at these words. I have a friend who's a major gift person for a organization here in Raleigh, and she called me. I do a lot of informal coaching in my AFP chapter and all my peers. And she called me. She said, Gail, I can't get an appointment. Nobody will see me. And I said, well, sweetie, what are you saying when you ask for the appointment? And she said, I'm asking if I can come see them and give them an update on what we're up to. And I said, well, gosh, no wonder nobody wants to hear you. So be really careful in your choice of words. This particular phrase makes the person, Mr. Big is not going to hear from a junior staffer who sounds a little timid on the phone. They're not going to waste their time if they have to sit there and listen to a presentation from somebody junior. So no, that the only way you're going to get in Mr. Big's door, and if you're a more junior level person, is to let them think they are doing the talking. And that's why the advice visit is so important and so powerful. And this is one of my favorite slides of all. I do a lot of training and presenting all over, everywhere. And the Fundraiser's Kiss of Death. Google my article, The Fundraiser's Kiss of Death. It's a funny article, but it's very important, because the number one way to be boring is to talk too much. And if you are in somebody's office and you're talking too much and you are being boring, my friend, they will never, ever, ever see you again. So you have to be really careful in your delivery and in that meeting that you're not going to talk too much. And I'm going to speak more about this later. But pull out the article and see if you could be accused of talking too much in a session. If you're talking more than 50% of the time in a donor visit, you're dead. You're totally dead. Now, let's talk about 3 kinds of preparation, because you got to be prepared. And by the way, here is this webpage again, gailperry.com, resources-Pamela Grow, and you can pull down that workbook. And Hilda, guess what? I'm so sorry, I cannot give you my book free, because Amazon makes me, my publisher makes me pay $23 for it, and the Amazon has got it on sale for maybe between $28 and $30 right now. And my book is Fired Up Fundraising: Turn Your Board's Passion into Action. It's all about board members and how to spark their interest. Now, 3 kinds of preparation. Your mindset. Okay. Now, when I started as a major gifts officer, I thought, oh, the wealthy, they are far, far away, high up on the hill. I'm a lowly peon. Why would they see me? You know, and so one of the things you have got to do, you have got to get over the intimidation factor. It is real. And when I do a training, I have people talk to each other and say, how do we get over the intimidation factor? You know, sometimes better preparation, sometimes starting with somebody easy to visit. You know, there are different ways, but this is a very real factor, and it's all mental. It's all mental, right? And also, here's something else that's mental, that the energy that you are showing, can you change the energy in a room when you walk into it? You know, this is a funny sort of thing, this energy about fundraising, because if you're scared or embarrassed about what you're doing, your energy is going to be cold and clammy like the kitchen garbage disposal, you know. But if you are shining with white light, you know, you're high up on the hill, you're worried about these school kids who need food on the weekends, or the people who are freezing on the streets, or the streams that are dirty, or the ballerinas that need to go on stage and bring art and inspiration to the world, you know, you've got to be that excited about your work. And when I was in Chicago, these people are doing this amazing work with the elderly, amazing work. You know, they're helping elderly with their dental stuff and their eyesight. And they're sitting in the back of the room going, oh, we can't raise money. Nobody wants to give to the elderly. And I mean to tell you, I gave them a talking to, a pep talk. I gave them a pep talk. So don't you dare allow any naysaying like that going on anywhere, in your office, in your boardroom. No hand-wringing, no whining. You have got to think Martin Luther King, that if you are going to solve this problem, you've got to be positive about it, right? So I will stop. I'm getting on my soapbox. But the attitude is a big deal. You know, this kind of attitude, you know, whoa, or perhaps this kind of attitude, you know, because energy is contagious. It is contagious, my friends. And studies show, here's my friend Dr. Martin Luther King. Yes, I listen to his speeches. I listen to the cadence. I listen to the imagery. You know, I listen to the emotional power behind the images. You know, this man, we can all study. There are a lot of great leaders we can study. And I would suggest that if you want to change the world and be a leader in your community, you're a small organization, but that doesn't mean you can't change your community. So don't think small. You got to think big. I was going to tell you there's a study there were many studies about energy vibrations, And I was just telling Pam I'm taking a meditation course, and I'm trying to get back into my daily 30 minutes of meditation. um, but energy states are contagious among small groups of people. So when you are around a happy person, you may feel happier, and when you're around a person who is glum or negative or whining, you feel bad too. So be careful about that. And one more part of your mindset, this is part of your preparation, is that you've got to go in the room thinking that the glass is half full. Again, this is this naysaying scarcity. You dare go into any scarcity dialogue, because you're not going to raise the money if you do. You're just, if the athlete is going to run the race and she's looking at her competitors and she says, oh my gosh, everybody is better than I am, I'm never going to win. Do you think the athlete is going to win? No. So mindset is huge. I'd like to talk more about mindset, because I think everything happens in your mind anyway, and you might agree with me. So look, let's talk about more of your preparation. You got to do your research. Now, we've just talked about the mental stuff, right? Let's talk about the hard data gathering. You want to study your donor files. Who's been in touch with them recently? Have they made a gift recently? What do you know about them already? And now, my friends, do you see that we have a picture of a little old lady here on the screen? It's a little blurry, but I would like to give you a very important tip, that women are more generous than men, and they're more than twice as generous as men. And there's a famous study by the Indiana University School of Philanthropy, the Institute on Women's Giving, in 2012. They compared two groups of donors, men donors and women donors, who were boomers and older. So they were in the same demographic, similar, exact demographic characteristics, okay? For every dollar men gave, women gave $258. Your likely donor is probably a darling, wonderful little old lady, and you know something? She might really want to see you. So it might be a whole lot easier to get in the door into your real prospects' living rooms rather than your imaginary prospect, Mr. or Ms. Big, head of the foundation, or big shot philanthropist. So think deeply about who your prospects are. Now, part of your research is that there's a lot of stuff online. You need to Google your people. You can find out so much from online research. And I would always Google a prospect before I was going to meet them. And I'll tell you something else. Your local newspaper has a lot of information, and you need to always, always, always be well-read on current events in your town. And you know why? So when you go to make that visit, you're going to show up as a community player. You can discuss with Mr. or Ms. Prospect what is going on in your community, because you better believe they are paying attention to what's going on. And it builds credibility for you, and it also helps you know who's doing what. Because one of my favorite ways to find out information about prospects is hearsay. And a lot of people don't write about hearsay as a place to do data gathering on potential donors. But I will tell you that when I was on staff at Carolina and Duke, the donors all know each other, and they talk to each other, and they will tell you what's going on with these other people. They will tell you stuff you don't even want to know. And the fact is that people love to talk about other people's money. They love to talk about other people, and they will certainly talk about other people's money. So you have, let me wave the flag of your ethical considerations, my friends, that you should never write anything down about a prospect you would not want them to read. And your donor files on your prospect should be vanilla enough that the prospect and the donor can read their own files and not be offended. So be very careful about stuff in writing, and people will tell you things you don't want to know that you don't want to write down. But comments from friends and associates of donors can often provide very useful, relevant, and very timely information. They know who's getting the inheritance. They know who's getting bought out of a big company, all sorts of stuff. And one more point, and if you're going to show up as a big time community leader, um, show up at the important events. I don't know if anybody's in North Carolina. You can see that's Hugh McCall, who founded North Carolina National Bank, which became Bank of America, and I had the honor of working with him when I was at Carolina. And he was a scary guy, let me tell you. And this is a big major event, right? Big major event in Charlotte. I was doing a board retreat for the Gantz Center, and I pulled it off their website. So you need to show up in your community, because this is where you can schmooze with potential donors and prospects, and you can get the doors open. You can see a donor at another event, and you can say, we're up to something interesting. I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you and pick your brain. That is the easy way. I don't like to just call cold. I like to run into my prospect and make it easy for me, and then I ask for the gift. The visit. Now, preparation. You got to set clear objectives, and people don't understand what their objectives are when they're making major donor visits. And so let me get very clear what your objectives are, and you're going to be surprised. You are trying to make a discovery visit, okay? Every visit with a prospect is a discovery visit. So your objectives, number one, are a long-term relationship. Remember I talked about it at the beginning? Number two, your objectives, you are there to find out where your prospect stands. This is what cultivation visits are all about, right? Finding out where they are. What are their hot buttons? How do they feel about your project? How far away are they? And you can tell how far away if they're interested or not. Mission going on. Are they about to make a gift to the other homeless shelter, not yours? Are there family or financial pressures that they just sort of dump on you? You would be surprised. And see, the thing is, if you're doing all the talking, you will never find this stuff out. So you are making a recon discovery visit. And the last goal is to find out a next step. You want to have a reason to follow up. And I would say, and this may be, you may challenge me on this, but the true purpose of the visit is to get a second visit, right? So again, I'm just going to review these really quickly, and I want you to not forget them and maybe put them up on your bulletin board. Your objectives whenever you make a cultivation visit on a potential donor: number one, you're after a long-term friendly relationship. Number two, find out where they stand vis-a-vis your project, and also figure out a next step. If you make a visit and you don't come away with the next step, you may have wasted your time. Because then how are you going to get back in touch? And a next step might be the prospect says, well, what about this, blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh, gosh, I don't have that information with me. I don't know. And you're embarrassed because you don't have the information. No, you should not be embarrassed. You say, listen, I'll get back with you. I'll look that up and get back with you and let you know. Hooray, hooray. Hooray, you have a reason. So if they ask a question you can't answer, that's perfect, instead of feeling like you've been caught with, your pants down or something awful like that. Now, here's some other objectives. When I was at Duke, my scary vice president, I was a young fundraiser, and we were going in to make a visit. He looks at me and he says, what are our objectives in making this visit? And I'm going, whoop, whoop, whoop. I wasn't sure. So, here are some ideas, you want to be sure that you are very clear about other objectives. We're here to discuss the grant they gave us last year. We're here to thank them for their support and update them. Our objective is to find out how they'd like their gift to be recognized. You want to have something really specific, and this is an internal conversation. Now I don't see any questions, so I just want you to know that I'm monitoring the question box, and so you can be sure to ask me one if you want. This is your preparation, so let's now walk in the room for our prospect. You're walking in the door, and let's talk about 10 essential tips for handling the visit itself. Would you like 10 essential tips for handling the visit? We've done our preparation, we've done our reconnaissance, we've done our research, we've read the paper, we've shown up at events, we've got a positive hat wearing, and we've narrowed down our focus to maybe a very small number of people that we're going to love on a lot. In the South, we say, we're going to love on you, honey. Come over here and let me love on you. You're going to love on these people a lot. So the first thing, and people don't think about this, is that you need to charm the receptionist. Why? Let's think about why. Because I was helping a hospital up north with a search. We were trying to find a great big job, vice president for development, and this fancy lady, all dressed up and very important, comes in for the interview to be vice president. She had this impressive resume, and she sat there and she was rude to the receptionist, and she didn't speak to anybody, and she prissed in and prissed out. And let me tell you, we didn't hire that lady because the receptionist came back to us real fast with who they liked and who they didn't like. So you try to make the receptionist your friend and ask her or him for advice, or ask him or her for information. Is this really a good? Is Mr. Big in a good mood today? I'm making a first visit with him. I hope he's okay, and she'll love to take you under her wing, or he will. Now, also, you walk in the door, and there's Ms. Big. Remember, most of our donors are women, and she says, "Hello there. I'm Jane Smith. Thank you for coming to visit with me." I guess she'll say that. And you stick your hand out and you shake hands, and what do? Instead of blathering, you want to immediately make some small talk. And what is small talk? I had a very big conversation with my daughters way back when they were in elementary school, because I was picking them up from school, and I was listening to NPR. And there was this funny little article or thing on NPR about small talk. And I said to my girls, I said, "Ladies, let's learn about small talk." And they learned how to talk to adults. I gave them lessons. I said, this is what you do. Small talk, when an adult says, "Nice to meet you," you as a child, you're middle schooler, you say, "Hi, how are you? Nice weather today." Or, "That's a pretty sweater you're wearing." Or, whatever. You're trying to make small, innocent, innocuous conversation. And what does small talk do? It helps you relax. It helps everybody relax. And remember that the best conversationalist in these situations is the person who talks the least. So your small talk is to look at the beautiful Japanese face on the person's desk and say, "Oh my gosh, I love Japanese faces. Please tell me about this." Or, "Oh my gosh, look at that sailboat in that picture. Is that your boat? Do you love sailing?" Or, "Oh my gosh, look at those children. Are these your kids?" It's very easy to do this. And if you have social skills, you pull them out, and this is how you make the person like you. So tip number 3 is always, again, the small talk conversation deliberately, is that I find that if I can get the prospect, I'm a little nervous, I might be late, or I couldn't find the office, I'm run, and then I get in the door, and if I can get them talking, then I can go, oh, you can collect yourself. And it's really important to sort of gather yourself together once you're sitting in their office or in their living room, and focus everything you have on them. And one of my great fundraising mottos is, when in doubt, shut up. If you're not sure what to say, then don't say anything, and they will fill the void, and you will find out something important. Here's an interesting question from Adia. She says, if she's the only development person, do you visit prospects alone, or you bring the executive director or founder? I personally believe that if you go first, if the person will see you by themselves, then that is stage 1, and then bringing the ED is step 2. And if you go by yourself, you can charm the other person, hopefully, and establish a happy, cordial relationship so that they will be friendly with you, and you can then you can sort of manage the process through by bringing other big wigs in as second, third, and fourth steps. That's my favorite way to handle it. And I'll come back to your second question in a minute. All right, 10 essential tips for handling the gift, the visit itself. We charm the receptionist. We, I forgot what number 2 is. What is number 2? We do immediate small talk, and we get the prospect to do the talking. And then we, let's see, we, let me speak a little bit about manners. Because the business meetings follow social customs, and there are rules of business etiquette. There are rules of business etiquette that apply. So what are social customs? That if you are a man fundraiser and there is a female older lady, you pull the chair out for her, and you don't sit down until she sat down. You defer to her. There is a book, I can't recommend a business etiquette book, but I have a whole presentation I do on mastering the soft skills of major gift fundraising, and I talk a lot more about this. But I was at my mother's house for Thanksgiving a few years ago, and she had on her coffee table how to live like a lady and how to live like a gentleman. And it was just a little funny book, and not funny, but very easy to read, little chapters. And I pulled from that book to create some presentations that I was doing about mastering the soft skills. So, if you're unsure about, what spoon to use or napkin, you bone up on that stuff, because if you're dealing with major gift prospects and major gift donors, they move in circles. They have perfect manners, and perfect manners can get you in a lot of doors, lovely thank you visits. And, here's a question. What's the definition of etiquette? The definition of etiquette is that you are kind and considerate, and you keep your cool, right? And you put others at ease. I did pull this out of those books, but I love this is what every smart fundraiser should be, or everybody should be in their whole life all the time, right? Put others at ease, be kind and considerate, and keep your cool. I like that. Okay, and also when you're making this visit, first impressions count. Your posture, your handshake. Practice shaking hands with people in your office, and be sure you've got a good firm handshake, especially if you are a woman. Practice shaking hands. Should you kiss hello or not? I'm always worried about that in the South. I always stick my hand out, and if they want to give me a little hug or something, I will let them make the first move. But how to greet people is a real an art that you need to know about, and your posture matters too. You hold yourself up like a lady or a gentleman, like you're somebody to be dealt with. And one last thing about etiquette. This is business etiquette. It caters to the person who has the most power and influence. So you would not interrupt Mr. or Ms. Big, right? And you would defer to them, right? So just be aware of all these funny little things, because that can turn your donor against you if they perceive you as being rude. And, of course, the number one way to be rude is to be boring and talk too much. So tip number 5, social awareness. Again, this is all this funny stuff, this soft skill stuff. You are focused on the other person. And this is easier said than done, let me tell you right now. Because if you are nervous, a lot of people, when they're nervous, they tend to talk, right? They tend to talk. And if you talk too much, you're dead. So be relaxed. I love this picture because they're sitting together. There's not a table between them. If you can possibly get away from the table so that there's nothing between you, it psychically makes the other person more acceptable and more receptive. And my number one tip I'm sharing with you today is the tip for the advice visit. And my second number one tip that I'm giving you is my favorite question to get them to talk. And that is, what are your impressions of blah, blah, blah? What are your impressions of our organization? What are your impressions of this project? What are your impressions of our fundraising brochure? What are your impressions of this thing we're doing? I have raised, again, hundreds of millions of dollars using what are your impressions of. And you can sit there and do nothing but interview Mr. or Ms. Donor, and they will be thrilled and they will love you to death, and they're going to want to see you again. So again, this is not intuitive. You think you're coming in there to make a presentation, and you're not at all making a presentation. You're having a conversation. Also, show up as a likable person. Again, I've used the word friendly relationship over and over. If your donor doesn't like you as a person, they're not going to see you again. So you might as well realize that's why stuff is important. You want to be friendly and approachable, and somebody who shows up is interesting. So you can watch their body language, and and you can know whether they like how they're reacting to you. And their body language will tell you more than any words. Their body language. I once saw that I turned off a donor by just the flick of his eyelid. And I thought, whoops, that was not a good one, Gail. You just struck out. Try something else. And a lot of people are not going to be quite so obvious as the lady in this picture with her arms crossed. So you got to look for their body language. Tip number 9, never use PowerPoint, right? Never use PowerPoint because it will put them to sleep. The only circumstance under which you should use PowerPoint is if they are actively engaged and asking questions. Okay, so again, this is not a presentation. Be careful about these presentations because adult learners' eyes glaze over after 8 minutes. And if you're not getting them to talk or engaging them, or if they're not asking questions, you can be sure that they are not. They're just going, and they're thinking about lunch. Okay? So people who are not used to making these kinds of visits think that if they're making the presentation, they're doing a good job, and I would say to you that is not a good job. So be careful. Tip number 10, get out on time. What do you think about that? Because when I was working for Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, go Tar Heels, yay! I would be visiting on behalf of the business school these huge Wall Street dudes who were graduates of Carolina, and there was one guy who ultimately signed the Billionaire's Pledge, and I was the only fundraiser from Carolina he was willing to see. And wonder why that was. After all you've seen, I would pop in and I would pop out. I watched his body language. And he was a hedge fund guy way back at the very beginning of hedge funds. And I would ask for like 15 or 20 minutes, and I would get out of the door as fast as I could, because that meant when I came back to New York and asked him if I could drop in, he would say, of course, I'd love to see you. So one time I dropped in and the markets were going bonkers, and his secretary came to the office and I could see that look on his face. I said, excuse me, I got to run. Bye. And one thing one of my rules was I tried to leave while they still had something they wanted to say to me, while they were still talking. Because if I went ahead and got out when I said I would, even though they said, no, stay, I want to finish this, you get up and leave anyway, the next time you want to come visit them, do you think they're going to want to see you? You bet. Because they had this sense of there was still more to talk about. So lots of times if you're overly eager and you present, and the person says, oh, stay, and you say, oh, yes, I want to stay. No, get out. I'm giving you all of these rules that are not intuitive. I'm probably turning upside down everything you thought about visiting with a major donor prospect. And you'll have to tell me in the questions whether you do these things or whether it's part of your usual routine. And Cindy wants to know, is the best appointment usually done over lunch, or if not, when? I think that, people ask me to have lunch and I won't do it. If you're really, really busy, I'd rather have a quick coffee in the morning, or a Coke or a cup of tea or something at the end of the business day. And so part of your reconnaissance is getting to know them so that they will know what they prefer. Lunch takes more than an hour. You can do coffee in even 45 minutes. And you remember, you're asking for a short amount of time, not a long amount of time. So I only have 3 more slides, and then I'll take your questions, which will be a lot of fun. So remember, you don't talk too much. and you find out what they're interested in, and you leave with specific ideas for follow-ups. These are your must-dos, right? Don't talk too much. Find out what your follow-up steps are, or you wasted your time. And what you must avoid, you must avoid talking about yourself. You must avoid a boring presentation, and you must avoid overstaying your welcome. Overstaying your welcome. And here is the address again for the free workbook, gailperry.com/resources-Pamela Grow. And it's 61 pages. It's really good. I just updated it last week for my Chicago presentation. I'm giving it to y'all, hoping that you can raise some money for yourselves. And also, I just want to share with you these articles too. That these are my blog posts that I do every Friday, and so you can, if you go to this website, resources-Pamela Grow, this webpage, there'll be links to these articles too, so you don't have to search for them. So I want to see. Susanna has asked a question. How can you be sure this isn't perceived as rude? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Is this, Susanna, being rude? But you need to watch your donors' eyelids and body language, and read your etiquette book, perhaps. We're not being pushy. Remember, we're not being pushy. These are get to know you visits. Where does your prospect stand? What are their hot buttons? What are they interested in? What do they like? How do they like your organization? Usually, people like talking about themselves and what they think. So I have found that these kinds of questions are not rude at all. That people are unless you show up as being abrupt. If you show up as nervous and abrupt, they're going to feel awkward, and they're not going to want to. She's getting up and leaving early. Well, you want to be smooth about it. Like if you're visiting with a little old lady, it may be harder to leave. A little old lady may be lonelier, but she may own half the town. So it may be worth it to spend 3 hours with her. I'm serious.
I love the way you think, Gail.
Well, listen, I'm warped. I'm totally warped. But, this is so much fun. This is like a game.
It is.
It's a game. It's like a game. And wait a minute, I want to answer Adia's second question. And she says, if your donor pool is small and the largest gift is about $1,000, but there are many 50 to 100 donors, do you still call those donors to try and get visits? I don't think I would call those donors and get visits. I would try to invite them to a porch party to celebrate your organization or to do something special for them. I would try inviting them to things, and don't ever invite your donors to a donor appreciation event or the annual meeting. I can't think of anything more boring. I would invite them to a cookout, a porch party, a private tour for our donors. Think about how you're branding your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And make it, I have a bunch of articles about how to entertain your donors and how to make cultivation visits. Very important. So I'll take one more question. It's 1:59. Anybody got a question? I want to know from you whether you like these strategies. Besides, one person thinks they may be rude. Tell me if you think I'm warped or not, or if I don't see any responses yet. Oh, Cindy likes it. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Ryan wants to know the worst. Ryan. What was the worst
that's a great question.
What's the worst backfire I ever had? Okay, if I can live through this, you can live through anything.
Warped in a wonderful way.
Yeah, this is a story about Hugh McCall, the scary guy who founded Nations Bank and Bank of America, former Marine. I was a brand new fundraiser at the business school at Carolina, and we had a brand new dean that he had helped recruit, and we had organized a Dean's New Initiative Fund to give our new dean some slush money to invest in the things he thought were important for the school. And donors were putting $10,000 each in it, and it was working beautifully. And so I went to Hugh McCall and I asked him to match it with a $100,000 gift. And he ate me alive. This was an ask visit, and I had not properly warmed him up, I got to admit. And he said, Gail, what do you think we are? Do you think that we have all this money just to throw around? You know, blah, 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 blah. And I felt like I was in a meat grinder. And I mean, I got out of there as fast as I could, and I limped home to Raleigh from Charlotte, and I licked my wounds. But let me tell you the second half of the story, and you'll love this. It was a year later, and Margaret says I'm warped in a wonderful way. But let me finish the story in Hugh McCall, and then I'll stop. A year later, we're sitting. We had a board meeting at the business school. He was on the board, and we were having lunch with some of our donors and the board members. You know, these round table, 10 people round table. And so I'm sitting next to Hugh McCall. We're having a social conversation. Our staff is there. Other board members are there. You know, VIPs everywhere, but we're just being social. And all of a sudden, Hugh McCall says out loud to me in front of everybody, Gail, how much money is Carolina going to ask our bank for our bicentennial gift? And I thought, oh my God, he's going to eat me. I'm going to have to tell him, because we were going to ask him for $1 million. This was almost 20 years ago when $1 million was a vast amount of money, you know, and we didn't get a lot of those. I know that was true one day way back in university fundraising. And so I thought, oh my God, please, God, open up a hole in the ground and let me go down in it right now, because he's gonna destroy me in front of my colleagues, staff, my secretary, these other board members. I do not want to go through this. Dear Lord, please save me. And so, and I had to answer him. And so I took a deep breath, and you know how you tuck your neck into your shoulders, like I tucked my neck way down, like so I would protect myself. And I said, Hugh, I think they're going to ask you for $1 million. And so then dead silence fell around the table. He didn't say a word. And I'm thinking, Lord, save me, save me. The axe is going to fall on my neck any second. And then you know what he said? He said, Gail, I think you need to tell him to ask us for $2 million, not one. And so the word got around Carolina that I'd solicited Nations Bank for $2 million for their bicentennial campaign gift. You know, it was like such a relief. But I think he was making it up to me, because he'd been so mean when I put a big figure on the table before. So maybe that's how he worked. So, you know, maybe something like this will happen. I hope nothing that horrible happens to you. Pam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Do we have any?
Yeah.
That was amazing. Thanks. That was amazing. Thanks so much, Gail. It was
My
just
pleasure.
fabulous. It was just fabulous. As always, you are always fabulous. Well,
I love you too, sweetie.
and actually, who was it? Susanna said, great presentation and finishing on time. So with that,
Yeah, man, I finished early.
with that, I'm going to say goodbye and thank everyone for being here today and making an awesome afternoon. Thanks, Gail.
You bet. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.